Whether you're solving murders during breakfast, cracking cold cases on your commute, or playing amateur detective at bedtime, Amazon Music's got millions of podcast episodes waiting. Just download the Amazon Music app and start listening to your favorite true crime podcasts ad-free, included with Prime.
How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 3.
Greetings and welcome. It is Eric Erickson here across the United States of America. The phone number is 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program, don't forget to text Eric, E-R-I-C-K, to 33777. If you want to get the show notes, the live stream, the podcast, and so much more. Y'all, I gotta actually spend a little bit of time here on the Commies going to Cuba. This is actually kind of funny. I highly recommend, if you've never read the book Animal Farm, you should. Animal Farm is an allegory of communism. And there's the famous line that, all animals are equal, but some are more equal than others or some such. I might be botching the line, but essentially at the end, there is a scene of the animals looking in on the pigs that have taken over the farm. And the pigs are at the table with the farmers. And the pigs look like the farmers, and the farmers look like the pigs. There's really no difference between them. And it is essentially how the communist leaders have all sorts of glorious claims they make about communism, and yet they don't really believe it. They want to be in charge. Back in the early 90s, the Soviet Union collapsed after Perestroika and Glasnost, and Gorbachev was retired and put out the farm. Boris Yeltsin was the leader of the Russian Federation. Boris Yeltsin was a Russian leader, and the Soviet Union was divided into little republics, and Russia was one. It was very much like a United States, but it was the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, and they were all held against their will in this USSR by a Soviet military that stamped out any dissent. Boris Yeltsin rose, and when Bill Clinton's administration, it was, I think George H.W. Bush might have still been president at the time. George H.W. Bush was president. Boris Yeltsin came to the United States, and he walked into an American grocery store. He was so overwhelmed by the abundance and diversity of products, he believed that they had staged this for him, so they took him to another one. He was overwhelmed. They had nothing like this in the Soviet Union. Bernie Sanders and his wife hate the United States and the free market so much, they honeymooned in the Soviet Union. Bernie Sanders was asked about the bread lines in the Soviet Union. Notoriously, the Soviet Union had bread lines. People had to stand in line to get bread. And Bernie Sanders' response is that was proof that no one went hungry in the Soviet Union. Think about that. In Atlanta, the proof that no one went hungry was people had to queue up in line to get bread. There are no lines at my local grocery store. Yesterday, my grocery store was out of the bread that my family tends to get. Nature's Own honey wheat bread. They were sold out of it by the time I got to the grocery store. But there were 4 or 5 other brands of honey wheat bread and other bread as well. There wasn't just one. Bernie Sanders has also lamented the fact that in this country you can go to the grocery store and find varieties of deodorant and antiperspirant. He thinks that it's a sign of waste, that it's an inefficiency. Actually, it's a great efficiency that you can go to the grocery store and find the very specific brand of deodorant that you want. I get frustrated with Old Spice. I use the antiperspirant. I don't use the deodorant. This is clearly TMI, but I have tried the deodorant antiperspirant ones, and I get rashes, and I don't like it, so I just get the deodorant, I guess. I still sweat, but it doesn't smell bad, I guess. And I got one I like, but have you seen Old Spice has like a bajillion different ones? And I'm like, I got to find, why can't they just have the one that I want? And I said, like, oh my gosh, you sound like Bernie Sanders. I want the one that smells this particular way. Somebody else wants a different one, but we've all got, you just go find the smell that you like and you got it. It's a miracle of the free market that you can go find the very specific deodorant that you want with the smell you want. And Bernie Sanders is upset about it. Bernie Sanders wants bread lines in this country because he doesn't like that you can go in and have 50 million different types of bread that you can buy. The communists have gone to Cuba now, the Hassan Pikers and the Greta Thunberg. Greta Thunberg, was a climate activist, and now she's just a regular old short bus communist who shows up wearing her Palestinian headscarf in the name of defending communism. She's not very original anymore. She used to be the Asperger's doom and gloomer climate change person. Now she's just a veritable communist. She hates the West. She hates the free market. She hates that you and I have abundant power and energy. They've got blackouts in Cuba because of the Cuban power grid is so inefficient, run on oil. If anything, Greta Thunberg should be kissing Donald Trump's hairy white rear end because he's got the power turned off in Cuba. Do you know what their carbon emissions are in Cuba now, thanks to Donald Trump? Greta Thunberg should have her face so far up Donald Trump's backside that he can feel her tongue on his tongue because he has solved the problem of power in Cuba and the power and carbon offset problem of Cuba by shutting down the Cuban power grid. The oil blockade in Cuba has done a great job for Cuba's carbon offsets, and Greta Thunberg, who thinks we're all going to die within a year because of climate change, should be kissing Donald Trump's backside for solving the problem in Cuba, and instead, she is in Cuba demanding the United States allow the Cubans to burn oil. That's right. Greta Thunberg, who thinks we're all going to die if we keep burning fossil fuels, is in Cuba demanding Donald Trump allow Cuba to burn fossil fuels. She is there with Hassan Piker, the progressive podcaster who hates the United States. He literally went to Tiananmen Square, where the Chinese massacred democracy protesters in the 90s, and said that he supports China and the Chinese regime. And he wrapped himself in a Chinese communist flag and denounced the United States. And this guy is now in Cuba blasting the United States for making him stay in a 5-star hotel. These people flew first class to Cuba, are staying in a 5-star hotel, and the Cuban government has redirected Cuban power to keep the power on at the hotel and surrounded the hotel with guards lest Cuban protesters get in and disrupt the place. And then they had a music concert purportedly for the Cuban people, and the entire country went into a blackout, but they preserved the power grid for the concert. These are the sorts of people we're dealing with here. And notice that the American press corps has largely ignored it, and the issue here is that they don't need or want American press coverage. This is all about seeding narratives on TikTok, the Chinese Communist Party platform. They want to indoctrinate your children into communism by showing what they claim are the glories of communism and the evils of the free market. And it is the Cuban people now who are burning down Communist Party headquarters who want freedom. It's always the way it is. They're there with Code Pink. Remember, Code Pink's co-founder is married to a man who agitates for the Chinese Communist Party. In fact, increasingly what we're seeing is all of these people are funded directly or indirectly by the Chinese Communist Party. The Chinese Communist Party amplifies their messages. The Chinese Communist Party seeds their messages, and the Chinese Communist Party allows them to use TikTok to indoctrinate your kids on communism. We should require that they stay in Cuba. By the way, they are violating federal law. It is my hope that if Pam Bondi has any competence whatsoever, and I'm not sure she does, that Pam Bondi will prosecute these people when they return to the United States for violating the embargo. They claimed they were taking humanitarian supplies. They brought enough humanitarian supplies for they themselves to eat while they are in Cuba. And they decided to paint a mural on a wall. When you go to Cuba, by the way, I didn't know this until yesterday. A buddy of mine who is Cuban was telling me that there are murals painted on the walls by the Chinese Communist Party. When you go to Cuba, you'll see the mural that these Code Pink protesters, Hassan Piker and others, painted on the wall. And he said, do you know what the murals are for? I assumed they were just art projects, show people beauty in the midst of dilapidated buildings. That's actually not it at all. He said Fidel Castro lined up dissidents along the walls, and the first murals on the walls were the bloodstains of the bodies, where Fidel Castro had Cuban dissidents lined up and gunned down on the sides of walls. And the first murals were the blood splatters of the dissidents. And the murals ever since that the Communist Party paints are reminders to the Cuban people that if they defy the regime, they will be murdered. And the Cubans saw the communists from the United States, the champagne communists. Hassan Piker, the podcaster, wears Cartier glasses that are $1,300. The frames for his glasses are $1,300, and he flew down to Cuba to celebrate the glories of communism with an impoverished people and to blame the United States for the state of their poverty, not the Cuban Communist Party. Every single communist government on planet Earth has collapsed, except China, North Korea, and Cuba at this point. Every single one of them collapsed due to internal forces, and it's only a matter of time before the Cuban Communist Party collapses. They seem to be on the verge of it, and these people went to try to subsidize it and prop it up. They are not enemies of the free market, although they're enemies of the Cuban people, willfully denying the oppression of that regime. Willful, useful idiots that communists around the world have always relied on. And ultimately, at the end of the day, what it gets to is how they hate their way of life here. They take advantage of it. Hassan Piker can be in the United States and blast the United States and hate the United States. But he actually made the choice to be here and not Cuba. He claims he likes China, not us. He doesn't want to live in China. He doesn't want to live in Cuba. He did a podcast. I can't play it for you because it's profanity-laced, but he talks about how the Cubans are just so chill. It's like island culture, I guess. They're always out partying. They're always on the beach. It's because they have no jobs, because their power is out. They have nowhere to go. They have nothing to eat. They're on the beach because they have nowhere else to be. That's it, you naive, willful, America-hating idiot. And I would note to you how the left have propped that guy up in particular with covers on Vanity Fair and invited to Oscar parties and profiled in the New York Times as the left's bro. He's a communist who hates the United States, and the left has rallied around him to amplify himself, and he and his fellow travelers have gone to Cuba to party in Cuba with the Cuban Communist Party and bring attention to the suffering of the people there who are suffering not because of the United States, but because of the very Cuban Communist Party these people are propping up. They should all be required to stay there, or if they come home, be rounded up and thrown in jail for violating the embargo. I am on my second house with my wife, and in both houses, we've had problems. The joys of homeownership come with the burdens of appliance breakdowns, plumbing failures, HVAC, electrical. Well, that's where HomeServe comes in. It's like a subscription for your home for as little as $4.99 a month. They got your back. Repairs hit fast and hard. You could be searching for a contractor in a panic. You could already be on the phone with HomeServe's 24/7 hotline scheduling a repair. It's super simple. You choose a plan for your needs and budget, and when something on your plan goes wrong, you call their 24/7 hotline to start the repair process. They've been helping folks for 20 years with 4.5 million customers, a 4.8 out of 5-star post-repair rating, and A+ Better Business Bureau. They're legit. So what do? Well, you go to homeserve.com, pick a plan. Many of them start for as low as $4.99 a month, and they're between $4.99 and $11.99 a month. Terms apply on covered repairs. Go to homeserve.com today. Hello and welcome. It is Eric Erickson here, 877-973-7425. The New York Times, I'm reading this to you from Guy Azrael, who is a correspondent out of Israel, well-sourced with Mossad. New York Times claims the Mossad chief promised early in the war that Iran's regime could be toppled via a popular uprising. That's not accurate. The Mossad chief presented a serious, comprehensive plan for regime change, but never claimed it could happen at the start or during the war. The plan, shown to senior White House officials, places any potential mass protests at the end of the war, possibly months later, consistent with messaging we've heard from Israel's leadership in recent days. Moreover, significant parts of that plan haven't even been implemented yet and still require approval. Barnea spoke about feasibility, not immediacy, and stressed it would take time and only come after the fighting ends. It's also worth noting President Trump himself urged the Iranian public to stay home during the operation, warning it was too dangerous to take to the streets. Reports of U.S. disappointment over supposed promises is puzzling, to say the least, in large part because, as advertised in the New York Times, that is not what Mossad or the Israeli government claimed. I have a little bit of insight here from some pretty good sourcing that, in fact, the Israelis and the Americans believe that any sorts of mass uprisings would not come for at least 5 to 6 weeks or thereafter, that no one at all argued that popular uprisings would come concurrent to the start of the war. I know that fairly confidently from people I have talked to. So we will see how this continues to play out in the press and everywhere else. By the way, the U.S. dollar has been surging as countries around the world are buying up dollars. You know why? Because oil prices. When oil prices get high, people go to the U.S. dollar because the U.S. dollar provides them stability. It's become, again, the world's reserve currency. Even the Chinese are back to buying dollars. Given what oil prices are doing abroad, we are least likely to be affected by oil prices compared to everyone else in the world. Now, let me tell you about Renai, because, you know, as natural gas and propane, people look at it as great sources of energy and efficient energy. I have propane at my house. I don't have natural gas. We switched to a Renai tankless water heater from our electric tank water heaters. We yanked the tanks for the tankless, and our power bill went down from our electric heat water heaters to the Renai tankless water heater. We never run out of hot water, unlike the tank of a water heater. In fact, we've got our tankless water heater on a UPS backup, so if the power goes out of our house, we still have hot water flows through. It is very efficient, and you can too. All you have to do is go to talkingtankless.com. talkingtankless.com. Click on the button to talk to a Renai professional, and they can get you set up with a tankless water heater. And again, when our power goes out at our house, because the way we've got our tankless water heater set up, which we could never do with a tank of water heater without a whole house generator, we have hot water still. TalkingTankless.com, TalkingTankless.com. Talk to Renai. Stop your kids from fighting over hot water in your house. Stop having an inefficient water heater. Get a tankless water heater from Renai. TalkingTankless.com. This episode is brought to you by Pocket Hose, the world's #1 expandable hose, and I love it. I can't speak highly enough of the Pocket Hose. Why? Because your normal old-fashioned hose that you get, and it comes in the big curled up, coiled up, it kinks, it gets knots in it. The Pocket Hose doesn't. And the Copperhead's pocket pivot swivels 360 degrees for full water flow. I use it around the house, use it in the backyard. It's pollen season now. I'm washing off pollen everywhere. For a limited time, my listeners can get a free pocket pivot and their 10-pattern sprayer with the purchase of any size Copperhead hose from Pocket Hose. Just text ERIC to 64,000. That's ERIC, ERICK, to the number 64,000, 64000 for your 2 free gifts with your purchase. ERIC, ERICK, to 64,000. Message and data rates may apply. See terms for details. You really want the Pocket Hose. It's pollen season. Welcome back. It's Eric Erickson here across the United States. Delighted to have you with me. The President of the United States has gone to Memphis, Tennessee, to talk about crime and sending the National Guard to Memphis and sending the National Guard to Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C., just so you understand, and this can't be emphasized enough, we are now towards the end of March, and if the pattern holds, Washington, D.C. is on track for the lowest murder rate in history of that city. Washington, D.C. has had fewer murders this year so far than in any year in recorded crime history in Washington, D.C. The only difference is the president has had the National Guard there helping. They've also gone to Memphis. This is the president talking in Memphis, Tennessee.
We want to have heart. We want to have fairness, but we have to be tough because some of these people are bad people that should have never been allowed to be here. Since I took office, we have successfully arrested or removed from the country over 500,000 hard-line criminals. And under our leadership last year, the murder rate nationwide saw the single largest decline ever recorded to the lowest level in 125 years. That's something. That's something. And this is despite the fact that they allowed 25 million people into our country. Many of those people should never have been allowed into our country.
A little more from the president in Memphis.
And it was happening a lot. It was really bad. And like this, actually, yours was at a level higher, to be honest with you. It was really bad. But it was happening a lot. And now you walk down Washington, it's like everybody that sees me in Washington, we've been doing that another couple of months longer. Everybody sees me in Washington, they say, "Thank you, sir. Thank you." And I immediately know what. You know, they could thank me for a lot of things. I said, are they thanking me for the economy? I know immediately. We have people working in the White House, young women. They walk, I would say normally beautiful young women. Ever since I got elected, I don't like to say that because usually when you say a beautiful woman, isn't she beautiful? That's the end of your political career. So I never say that. But young women coming up to me and they're saying, "Sir, thank you so much." I know immediately what they're talking about. I say, how big a difference is it? They say, we walk to work. We were afraid to walk into an Uber. We were afraid to walk into a car. The car would be, it didn't matter. The car was being robbed when we were in the car. And it was much more than being robbed. Being robbed was the least of it. And we took out over 3,000 people. And you know, there's an expression that 90% of the crime is caused by 2% of the population. And when you hear that, you realize why we can do such a good job. We moved 3,000 people out, permanently out of Washington. These were career criminals. Many of them came in through the Biden open border disaster. They came in. They weren't there. They came in. They said, we want to live in Washington where they'll take good care of us, give us plenty of welfare. And we got them all out. We moved them back to their countries. Sometimes we'd put them in prison because they were so dangerous.
That's the president of the United States. And by the way, he's not exaggerating there. That is something that happened. And the Democrats insist we cannot incarcerate our way out of the problem. And yet in Memphis and in Washington, D.C., they've done exactly that, and crime has gone down. There's this mythology advanced by George Soros-funded prosecutors and by progressive activists that we just can't throw people in jail. Why not? It works. Why not? We should. It's working. In Washington, D.C., and in Memphis, Tennessee, crime has fallen dramatically. It is safe. So my sister, brother-in-law, and their family, they live in Memphis. My niece was telling me, in fact, I flagged this to the White House. My niece was telling me, so she is a nurse does neonatal work as a nurse at one of the hospitals in Memphis. And they literally have women who go to work, and when they come out of their shifts, usually 12 hours later or so, their cars have been jacked up in the parking lot and the tires stolen. My niece was telling me the story that this was a common thing in Memphis, where you as a nurse would go to the hospital to work your shift, and when you came out, your tires would be gone. It's not happening anymore. The president and his team put a stop to it. The crime in Memphis was so bad that the Nashville tourism industry is complaining now. What? Why? They're about, 3-4 hour drive away, a couple hours away at least. So many tourists were ditching, and college students were ditching downtown Memphis at night and abandoning Beale Street because the crime was so bad they were going to Nashville. And now all the people who were fleeing to Nashville for their weekends, they're staying in Memphis because the crime is down so much, it's safe. Memphis has gotten measurably better. Washington, D.C. has gotten measurably better. And you know what the significance is that the people of those cities decided that they were ready to become safe. They were ready to do what needed to be done. They were ready to have the National Guard there to protect them because the local governments had proven themselves too inept to do anything. The local governments failed. So the president stepped in. He didn't have to have local permission in Washington, D.C. He got the permission of the county, and he got permission of the state in Memphis to go in and help, and it worked. Crime's down, tourism's up, the neighborhoods are happy. The black residents of Memphis are showing up at the presidential event to thank him. I played you some audio a while back of some black residents in Memphis, and it was an elderly lady. She didn't care who got the credit. If the president could make it safe, she would give the president credit for it. And she has. The people of Memphis have given the president credit for this because the president and his team have reduced crime in those cities. And it's remarkable to watch progressives in other cities refuse to have the president and his team there and not want the president and his team there when crime has gone down markedly. It is safe in these cities again. They have started work, I guess, to some degree in New Orleans, but not as aggressively as they have in Memphis and in Washington. I would love for the president and his team to go to New Orleans and really crack down there on crime. I was talking to a buddy of mine the other day who wants to go to New Orleans, has not gone to New Orleans with his family. He wanted to go see the Garden District. If you go to New Orleans, by the way, go to the Garden District. Go to Audubon Park. The Bourbon Street is, it's the tourism. You can go to Cafe Du Monde, which is worth it. The beignets really are as good as people say. And the French Quarter is a gorgeous section of the city. The French Quarter is the oldest section of the city. It was built above sea level. Much of the city is below sea level. But the Garden District, y'all, the Garden District is less touristy. The Garden District has beautiful homes. They got great restaurants. It's very walkable. You go all the way to Audubon Park to the zoo. I used to love to take my kids to the zoo in New Orleans. One of my favorite zoos is New Orleans Zoo. It's a wonderful place. And for a very long time, it has not been a safe place to go. And it's so sad because it's such a beautiful city. The restaurants there are wonderful. The people are so friendly. There are restaurants I've been going to in New Orleans that have been there since I was in high school or younger. I get asked all the time by friends of mine, where should I go eat in New Orleans? And it's always, I give them off the beaten path restaurants, not the tourist traps. Not the tourist traps. There are so many great places to go that are not the tourist traps in New Orleans. It's a beautiful city, but it's not safe. It's a city that thrives on tourism, but mugs the tourists. They need what has happened in Memphis. They need what has happened in Washington, D.C. They need it. The president is showing that he has policies in place that can work to make people's lives safer in these cities. And the difference between a Memphis and a New Orleans or a D.C. is that the blue cities and the blue states are opposing him. And I just think that more red states should work with the president and his team to continue doing what they've been doing and expand the safety of their cities and get the tourism win and deprive it of places like Chicago and San Francisco and Los Angeles and get the tourists in your red states to bring you their dollars, their tax dollars. Get them out of the blue states. Well, you don't need them to live there. Just come see your cities. They're beautiful. Charleston's another one. Savannah. These beautiful old South cities on the water. Do what Memphis has done. Learn from Memphis. Memphis is safe and tourism is up because of the president of the United States. And you will recall, notice now no one's talking about it and they blasted him at the time, but it's been a great success. Good for the president for hitting the road, too, to highlight this. Let's go to the phones. David in Jacksonville, Florida. You're going to be the next person up. Welcome to the show. David, you there?
Hello.
Hi there, David. Welcome.
Okay. Hey, three things real quick. The people that went to Cuba to protest or whatever, the first-class airfare and nice clothes, they're not there to help. They're just there to show the folks what they're missing. You probably missed the point on that.
Maybe so.
Secondly, yeah, just kidding. But secondly, every place that they defunded the police, if you can imagine, and I know you know this, it didn't affect middle-class America for the most part. It affected the folks in the areas where the crime rates were the highest. So, I mean, that was all just a bunch of, happens, just a bunch of noise is all that was. Of course, and it always is with Democrats. They'd like to check the box, we did this or we did that. And the last thing is, I was thinking about Afghanistan and Iran, two different countries, et cetera, et cetera. But there's a tribal basis to both of those countries that have gone back, I'm not going to say to Persia or whatever, but a long time. So I started looking up the organization of the Iran National the National Guard, the Iran National Guard, whatever they call it.
The Iran Revolutionary Guard,
yeah. Yeah, RC. Once you get out of Tehran, there's 31 provinces, and they are all headed by a province chief, commander, whatever you want to call it. And just doing a little bit of reading I did this morning, I think once you get out of Tehran, those guys are pretty much in charge of that one of those geographical areas, as long as they do the right to speak to Tehran. So bottom line, and here's my theory, is all 31 of those guys have gotten theirs. They got their money. Mm-hmm. Each one of those guys and their direct subordinates are very rich. So now that the top two or three layers in Tehran have been knocked out, there are probably guys out there in Iran that goes, we got ours. Why don't we see what these Americans have got to say? Blah blah. And
so
there may be
funny you should bring this up, David. There's actually a report out on the wires right now that this is kind of happening. That the reason that the Speaker of the Parliament, who is reportedly by the Pakistanis and the Turks now talking to the Americans, is saying, "I'm not talking to the Americans," is he doesn't want one wing of the guard to kill him, while other wings are working with him. There appears to be serious fracturing within Iran, which is working to our advantage. Let me. Where is the story? I just had it and then I lost it. That's okay. I can tell you what it is. That essentially, the working theory right now among the Israelis, the Americans, and our Arab allies is that the Iranian regime is now in such disarray and fracturing that they have begun turning on each other. And in fact, there is a growing consensus, the Israelis are not confirming, that some members of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps are calling in the positions of other members of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps to the Israelis, hoping to take out their competition. And the Israelis are willingly obliging to wipe out members of the IRGC. You literally have members of the Iranian government calling the Israelis with the locations of other members of the Iranian government. Now, remember, in the press corps, the Americans are losing this to the Iranians, that the Iranians are holding strong and the Iranians are protecting each other. Does this look like a winning situation for the Iranians? I go all the way back to the first hour of the program, that this piece in the Asia Times, that Iran has no end game for this. They don't know how to wind this thing down. They are divided. They are at each other's throats. They are not united, and they're being slowly wiped out, and their capacity to make war is being gone. And behind the scenes, a lot of the president saying, I'm going to do this. Okay, never mind. I'm going to do this, is just sowing confusion within the Iranian regime. They don't know how to respond as we continue to wipe them out. This is not like the Iranians are winning. This is the Iranians losing. I struggle to stay grounded in the Word. I am so bad about forgetting to read my Bible. I sign up for the yearly plans and I get through a couple chapters of Genesis and Matthew and let it go beside. I'm telling on myself. That's why Glorify is around. It's the number one Christian daily devotional app, and it's become a part of my life. It should become a part of your life as well, because like millions of others, it helps me actually stay focused in the Word. So download the Glorify app and create space every day for the Word. You can do it in the morning, on your drive into work, or in the afternoon on your way home. Listeners to the show can get full access to Glorify for just $29.99 for the entire year. It's Glorify's lowest price ever when you download the app at glorify-app.com/Eric. Feel closer to God this year with Glorify. Get full access all year for just $29.99 at glorify-app.com/Eric. There is some breaking news. The United States government is urging Americans in Oman to shelter in place, warning of ongoing activity in the whole country, that individuals are told to have a supply of food, water, medication, and other essential items and shelter in place until further notice across the entire country of Oman, which is interesting here. No word on exactly what is happening. That guidance has just come from the State Department through the American Embassy in Oman. I will keep an eye on this story as we continue to watch it develop. Meanwhile, you should know the president has also gone after Joe Kent. There's growing suggestion out there that Joe Kent might be the source of some of the crazy Candace Owens conspiracy theories, and it just looks more and more like he was, instead of doing his job countering terrorism, watching podcasts all day and listening to podcasts all day, polluting his mind. The president essentially saying today that he tried to give the guy a fair shake after his wife died and he had a failed congressional career. And by being nice to the guy stabbed him in the back. Kent continues to go out and blame the Jews for everything. It's just very, very wild to see this sort of stuff. The president finally having enough of it. Sounds like the president's having enough of Tucker Carlson as well. Carlson gave an interview, I think, to The Economist and essentially said the United States needs to give up on leading the world and let China lead too. Got to share power with China. Think about that. A position of this podcaster is that we should share power globally with a communist regime that murders its citizens and puts them in concentration camps, that somehow we should just hand over power to them. They're trying to take it. And I just think we should try to stop them. We should try to stop them. In any event, just wild to see these people just exposing themselves as hating this country. Now, I got to tell you about Vision Computers. You may hate your computer right now, but you'd love it if you let Vision be your managed IT service. Call them at 404-COMPUTE or go to visioncomputers.com. So Vision Computers can build you new computers. And by the way, if they build you a new computer, their managed IT service comes with it. Now, let me talk about their managed IT service. Anybody nationwide, you can take advantage of this for your home or your whole office, where if you sign up with Vision Service, you get a special phone number you can call day or night if you ever have a question about your computer. You don't necessarily have a problem. Let's say you have a file, you know you saved it, but you can't find it. Vision can find it for you. You're having trouble getting your email set up. Vision can set it up for you. You're having printer support. They can set it up for you. And they don't use AI chatbots. They can tell you how you can integrate AI into your workflows, but they use actual human beings. You call them at 404-COMPUTE. Or you go to visioncomputers.com and you let Vision Computers take care of you and tell them Eric sent you. You might save some money. They can do this for your whole office. So your employees can be great at their jobs and let Vision Computers take care of their computers for them. It'll save you money and keep you productive. 404-COMPUTE or visioncomputers.com. Call Vision Computers today and tell them Eric sent you.